Welcome everybody. My name is Andrew Barry. I'm the CEO of Curious Lion, and I'm going to be moderating this panel for you today. I'm going to ask each of the guests to quickly introduce themselves, and then we'll dive right in. I also want to frame this a little bit by saying we were on a panel, Robbie and I, yesterday, talking about just the creator economy, and the conversation kept veering into corporate learning. So I'm excited to spend the entire 40 minutes we have today expanding on that idea. So, Teri, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hey, guys. My name is Teri, Ijeoma. I was assistant principal of an elementary school, but I needed an exit strategy. I was exhausted by the admin and the grind of it all, and I wanted to travel. So in order to quit my job and travel, I started trading stocks. I had learned that back in college at MIT, and I had been doing it as a side hustle while I was in education. I was in education for 10 years. So decided to quit, started traveling, trading stocks to afford it, and now people ask me all over the world to teach them how to do it too. How do you trade stocks and travel the world? So I have a course, Trade and Travel. It's the #1 course on Teachable. We've taught over 20,000 students and made millions of dollars. It's been just a great, great journey.
Hey y'all, I'm Robbie Crabtree, former trial lawyer in Dallas, Texas. I tried 102 jury trials, murders, capital murders, child abuse cases, and then I moved into advising and coaching startup founders, especially around storytelling. And now a lot of that work has led me to train their teams, startup teams, on how do you become a better communicator and a better storyteller, and I'm the founder of what I call Performative speaking. So that's a bit of my background. Pass it over.
I'm Jennifer Garrett. The fun thing about EDU is we are just a motley crew. Everybody has a different background. I, too, am a reformed lawyer, and I'm so happy to be here. I lead our education vertical at Meta. I'm here with many colleagues who are kindly here to support. Thank you all for being here. And I'm going to pass to another Washingtonian, actually.
That's right, outside DC. I'm Will. I am the head of product and co-founder at Rite of Passage. We're a 5-week cohort-based course that teaches folks how to write online and build a consistent trajectory of writing online. So I started my career at a 200,000 person corporation, had some exposure to the corporate training in that space, and then have moved into this new world of the frontier of online first cohort-based learning. So really interested to discuss the sort of contrast between those two, and yeah, let's kick it off.
So I think that's a good place to start. So Will, you were at Oracle before, and tens of thousands of people, Salesforce there. You've experienced what probably good and bad corporate learning looks like, and now you guys are literally pioneering one of the best online courses in the world. What has the contrast been for you? What do you see as the difference there?
Yeah, absolutely. So Oracle has a sales force of 35,000 people, and they have training that they give to those folks. But the regular training we would receive seemed to be sort of a very traditional model. There was regular, say, monthly or bi-weekly sessions where you would show up, but there was sort of a one-off feel to them. They didn't seem to build or compound in any way. There's a bit of a stale feel to the training we received, sort of one size fits all. And that's because there's just so many people, and sort of it was delivered like you'd find in a traditional classroom. What we do with Rite of Passage is very different, right? We have a big course. Right now we're running a course for 300 people over 5 weeks. We've got 300 people from more than 30 countries are enrolled in this course. 5 weeks where they're learning about setting up a website, building a writing habit, distributing your writing and building an audience. But despite that big size, we can use tools such as Zoom, such as community platforms to cater the experience to the individual learners, right? So depending on what interests you have coming into the course, depending what your specific goals are, we can use these software tools to tweak and cater the course to best serve your specific needs. So that's one difference right off the bat, right? And the second difference I would say is there's this iteration where, we run a cohort for 5 weeks, we take a ton of notes about how to tweak and improve the course, and we're almost treating this education product like a software product. We have version 1.0, 2.0, 3.0. Whereas I think the training I was getting at Oracle had been the same. They'd done for, since the 90s or whatever. So that's one difference I also point to.
Yeah, it's a rinse and repeat. I'd love to tease out a little bit of this, kind of build the persona of the creator teacher, right? What some of the other strengths, Teri, to you, that a creator teacher brings to the table?
So I think one thing that's really cool is I've done it. So when my students come to me, I can pinpoint exactly where they are because I've been trading for 12 years. I know the highs, I know the lows. There's this whole course, like week 2 of my training is all about risk management, but it's built out of all the failures that I had. So the time that I lost $26,000 and how did that go wrong? But the fact that I've had the failures, I can identify so much quicker what's going on with my students, and I can be flexible as the market changes and as things change because I'm still trading now.
Yeah, you hold both the journey and the destination in mind. Jenny, you work with a lot of creators on Meta and the various platforms you guys have. What are you seeing as some of those strengths that they bring to... We're going to need that from all of you.
We're in the wrong spot.
They were clapping for you.
No pressure,
They were
but...
like, question. Go, Jenny.
Well, my friend Matt Greenfield actually just wrote an article on joyful learning, and I think that creators can play a really special part in this because being so close to the learner and the consumer, as Will just touched on, enables you creators to really move in real time with them and to capitalize on the ability to experiment and to build that curiosity into the teaching in a way that we haven't been able to traditionally. Also, I think creators are in a unique position to collaborate, both with students and with one another. And a lot of platforms, I mean, at Meta, we do have something called the Creators Lab, which is all about collaboration and allowing people like you three to connect and to see what's working and what's not and to become inspired by one another. So it's incredibly exciting and hugely important to our platform as well as many others now and frankly in the future in the metaverse. We see creators as a really important bridge to the future.
Yeah, I love that point about joy in learning as well. Robbie, anything to add here? One thing that comes to mind from having taken your programs, and we talked about this a bit yesterday, is the bias for action. You get people to take action throughout, and it's truly transformational as a result.
So first off, I want to quickly call out the collaboration piece and how creators work. The first course that really showed me what was possible was Rite of Passage. I took that back in July of 2020 during the pandemic and said, oh, I can turn what they're doing for writing into something for speaking and storytelling. It was that insight that allowed me to really go, oh, there's this light bulb moment. And as a result, all these creators who are putting out this content and putting out these courses and these learning experiences understand how they all fit together because we've taken each other's courses, we've gone through it. So we see how the ecosystem all connects. So it really becomes this compounding effect of like, I know what I do great, I know what they do great, I know what somebody with design does great, and you can put all those pieces together. So you feel much more comfortable in delivering what you are an expert at. And to your point, Andrew, so then what I do is come in and say, how do I make sure people are learning the skills that they need, but being put in a place where they can be vulnerable, but also authentic in the way that they're presenting. So speaking is extremely vulnerable. You're opening up your soul and essentially showing it to the world. People are worried about their voice or rambling or stuttering or filler words or all these different things, so they won't put in that action. So we have to create an environment where they feel safe with their fellow person in their cohort. And this is where we push them to prompts that are safe and say, we're going to put you in small groups where you're not going to be in front of an audience of 100 people and called up and you're going to get nervous and feel all that. It's 3 people, it's 4 people, it's 5 people. And over time, what you do is you develop this familiarity and comfort with this bias to action. So then when you're put into a bigger audience, a bigger stage, you're basically building these foundational pieces so that when they get in front of 20 people, when they get in front of 50 people, when they get in front of 100 people, all of a sudden they've put in all these skills and developed this confidence that now they are much more prepared for delivering that big talk. And they feel that transformation of when I started this 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks ago, I would have never got in front of a group of 50, 100 people and delivered a talk. But now because I know everybody's here to support me, everybody's on this shared journey, I'm willing to do that.
So one of the things I hope you took away from that introduction response from everybody is the incredible amount of intentionality and detail, thinking that each of them bring to their programs. That is, I think anybody who's taken corporate learning will know is not often the case, right? And so there's a huge value that the creator economy brings in. Now, bridging that gap is challenging, right? Corporates don't just go out and buy from random vendors. They often have very established relationships in place, and it's a difficult process. So my next question is around how corporations can enable creator teachers to deliver their expertise, to bring this intentional approach to learning into the workplace. Teri, do you want to?
I can kick it off and then pass it down. But one thing I would encourage corporations to do is if there's someone at your company that's already taking an online course or in a cohort-based course or something with a creator teacher, ask them to or create a process or system for them to raise that up. So if it's a really great class that they've benefited from, who do they tell so that more people at the company can have access to that course? I think right now there's not really a chain or any kind of link of oh, let me share this resource of a course that I took, and then the company supporting and putting dollars towards that for more of their employees.
Yeah, I mean, I'll jump in. It's what I think of it from the creative perspective is almost a Trojan horse approach. The B2C model is a way to get those people into our programs and show them what is possible. So whether you work at Salesforce or Amazon or Meta or wherever it is, which I've had people from all of those different companies come and work in, then all of a sudden they're like, hey, we need to take this into our company. So then normally what happens, the process is they'll bring a couple of their friends, they'll take it, and it takes a little bit longer of that cycle, but it really is a Trojan horse to get into that. And what you're seeing where I see the greatest buy-in right now is from startups, which makes sense. Startups are in the business of disruption. They're innovative. They're seeing these opportunities and saying, you know what, I'm going to bring it into my company sooner than a lot of the big corporations. So I think there's going to be a learning curve for some of these bigger entities to really kind of take hold of this concept. But I think we can start by going after the people who are most receptive to change and new ideas, which are those early stage startups, the ones who are disrupting industries and say, well, if I'm willing to do this, why wouldn't I try to do the same thing inside of my own company?
Jenny, I know you have a grant that Meta provides to creators. Can you talk about a little bit more about that in terms of that enabling them to rise up?
Well, there are a couple things going on. One thing about Meta that's just a philosophical thing to note is that the company is all about enabling economies around Meta. We don't try to do everything ourselves. So you all know who use the platform that it's a lot of work, but you get to be sort of the master of your own destiny on the platform. On the grant side, we are working with our partnerships team and really trying to enable learning in AR and VR and creation and expertise in that space for learning. We have a long way to go. We've just started. We actually are partnering with 2U, who's here, and they are working with one of their partners to build curriculum, and this is in higher education, in a medical school setting. So if you think about it, if you could learn to dissect in VR, that could be incredibly valuable, and it would speed up the real-life experience and all these things. So that's one side of it. And then but the overall philosophy, I think, is even more interesting, which is this empowering of the creator, making sure that creators get paid for their work. And the Creator Lab, and you'll see it on the Meta Hub, actually give all the tools that the creator needs right there. Here's how you get started. Here's how you do it. Here's how you can monetize your work. And frankly, that's how it should be. It's good for everyone. It's a win-win-win, right? It's great for the learner. It's great for the creator. It's great for the platform, and it's incredibly exciting to see it work.
Yeah, just want to jump in on the idea of if somebody from a corporate learning environment wants to get a taste of what the creator economy education is like. I think it comes down to one word. That word is feedback. So a quick question. Okay, who here has been in a corporation, done a corporate training before of any type, ever? Just by show of hands. Yeah, okay. Now, raise your hand if during that corporate training you had the packet, which is a bunch of paper, and you had a pen, and you filled out some answers during training. By show of hands, who had the packet? Okay, a bunch of you guys, right? This is the perfect contrast of what current, old world of pre-information abundance education was like, and internet, software, creator economy education is like. We don't do the packet in rite of passage. We use software. We don't use paper, right? So the packet, what happens? You write your answers. If you're like me, you write your answers, and even when you're writing, you know you're never going to look at it, and then you put it away, and you never look at it again. Okay? There's no feedback. It's a single-player game. When you think about rite of passage, you join the course, the first live session, 15 minutes in the call, you do a live exercise on the Zoom call. You write down your 12 favorite open questions. okay? And then you're immediately whisked into a breakout room virtually with 2 other people, and you might be in New York, and your partners might be in Peru and Singapore. And you're talking in real time, getting feedback on what you just wrote. Then when you finish the first session, you write your first essay. You share a draft in Google Docs. You get dozens of people from the course jumping in, giving you feedback. You refine that. You share it again. You get more feedback. You join mentor sessions. Andrew and Robbie were both mentors in Rite of Passage. Andrew was our mentor in our first ever mentor cohort, cohort 5. In mentor sessions, you're jumping in with peers. You're doing hot seats. You're getting feedback. There's feedback, feedback, feedback. It's community-driven learning. It's not a single-player game. It's a night and day difference. Feedback, I think, is the #1 thing that distinguishes old world learning and learning in the age of information abundance.
And you created this incredible safe environment too, right? And just the muscle, the doing it over and over, where people get used to getting feedback all the time, that's new.
Yeah. And just now, think about that in a corporate setting. My company works with companies that are starting to do this, that are bringing the cohort-based, community-based learning into reality. And it is that type of thing happening. So instead of sometimes it is cross-geography, but cross-functional. So the capacity to create within a company starts to generate. Learning is happening in the job, and not from some instructor who's, like you said earlier, rehashing the same thing over and over. So that you can see the potential for this is insane. I want to pivot this now to kind of look at what the demand side of the skills are. What are the things that corporations can look to the creator economy and say, this is where we can get some value. You mentioned when we were talking in our pre-call, Teri, about ERGs and how that's been a really interesting kind of bridge or entry point for you. Do you want to expand on that?
Definitely. So recently I did a workshop with Salesforce ERG, and we talked about just how important it was, especially during Black History Month, how important it was to bridge the wealth gap. And Salesforce was already doing some work about financial literacy, Black women, all these things that bridging the wealth gap. So of course that made sense for me to come in and be part of that speaking. And the same thing with Meta last year. I spoke with them during Juneteenth. So it's been really a great value to have me come in. And those students are already taking my class, learning about investing. So why not bring me in front of more people through the company?
And just quickly, just to follow up on that, what does that look like? They bring you in for a workshop and then it expands into something more? Like what's that evolution look like?
Yeah, so this one was, they brought me in for a Twitter Spaces event and just invited everybody on Twitter Spaces. And then from there, it'll be, okay, well, the next time we do something bigger, have a conference, why don't we bring you in as a speaker? So it'll just stair step. I know like Visa is doing some things too, where anytime there's an objective or that's centered around financial literacy, they know that they can call me in.
And it's about building that relationship, right? Exactly. Robbie, you've taken an approach, I think, to your work now, which is almost like you've almost like abstracted the skill, that the thing that you bring and you teach, and you can apply it in so many different ways. Talking about storytelling, obviously. Can you expand on that as well? Because I think that's helpful for creators thinking like, what is the value of my, and being flexible and adaptable to different companies.
So I think the new age of this creator economy and coming into some of these corporate learning environments is the fact that some of these creators have deep expertise on a subject. Like they obsess over it. I mean, to the point that I obsess over storytelling. It is a ridiculous obsession. And in most areas, like there's no role that I can go and apply to coming out of college that says storyteller. I mean, maybe a director or producer, but okay, that's not storyteller. But by understanding this core concept, this skill at its first principles level, and then really being able to expand upon it, what you're able to do is, I work with a lot of founders, right? But I also work with a lot of sales teams. And then I also work with a lot of people in product. And I work with a lot of teams on marketing. Because the skills of storytelling are transferable across all of those. You need them for recruiting, marketing, sales. It doesn't matter what it is, fundraising. Like that is a skill that you need. So we can figure out what are these first principles that we can take into these different areas and then tailor it specifically to them. And this is where being obsessed with a skill of this kind of core thing that I love helps me, because I have resources for all these different people. So when I go into an environment, I can say, hey, I'm speaking to tech founders. Here are the examples that are going to resonate with them. If I'm speaking to a bunch of marketers, here's marketing examples that I can point to. And you're finding ways to connect and speak a common language because you understand the core thing at its heart, so you can just expand upon it. I think that's what creators get that most trainers don't, because they have a prepackaged thing that they present to everybody. They're just going and rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. I have this talk and I'm just gonna deliver it and people are gonna love it, which is great and that's fine and that's nice, but that is not understanding it at its most basic level and then tailoring it to your audience. I think that's where creators are gonna excel in this economy.
Yeah, well, I'm going to have a specific question also on you. Can I, well, go say what you want to say and then I'll maybe follow up.
I think there's something too about a creator has tested their idea in the marketplace of ideas. Like they've earned their right to be a creator. You don't just build an audience. I suppose you can buy an audience with some sketchy service or something, but you don't just build an audience without doing it over and over again, putting real value out in the world. People respond to that. They follow you. They subscribe to your email list. And you test it in the marketplace of ideas. So there's certain genuineness to a creator who is teaching something. There's a certain passion. There's a certain legitimacy of skill. And I just can think of again, there was a few exceptions. I had a few great trainers when I worked at Oracle. A lot of them weren't great. A lot of them, I actually had a friend who was the software engineer, and he got in the training program, and he was like, I got the cushy job. Like, I just fly around the country, and it's super easy, and there's no real accountability. There's a lack of sort of passion and fire in the belly for it, whereas somebody who this is their livelihood. They tweet and they build email lists like everybody on this stage. Like, that is so real, and I think it makes the training dynamic and in a way that sort of most corporate training is not.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a proven efficacy to it by that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was going to just give a quick example of that. So I took a class one time, and it was $30,000 per class. And inside that class, the people were falling asleep because the instructor just wasn't good.
Right.
Versus on the flip side, if we're not good, then nobody will recommend our course. Yeah. And like most of my business is from referral. So it has to be good in order for it to succeed. So, yeah.
I just want to follow up on because we talked about this also just coming into the room about the flexibility and adaptability. You guys are taking your flagship products, you are tweaking it for a different audience now.
Yeah.
And one of the things, and I think this audience and what you're doing there is going to be interesting for corporates, because let me just frame the problem. Their course is a 5-week intensive, and I emphasize the word intensive. Like, you've got to fully commit to this 5-week program. I don't work with any company that can afford to do that or would be interested in putting their people through that type of program. So you have to adapt it a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. I just want to tell a quick story, and then I'll jump in on it. I just remembered this. When I was in a really bad Oracle training, the guy training us had never done a sales call, and he was training us how to do sales calls. And he's like, look, here's the deal. When you call them, you got to build a little rapport, get to know them a little bit. Like, for example, you call a guy, see he played lacrosse in college, say, hey, I know you're the IT manager at, AIG, but I saw you played some lacrosse in college. You got to get to know him a little bit. And we're like, dude, you've never done a sales call. That doesn't work at all. And so there's this gap between what they're teaching and what's actually happening, because he's never been battle tested. The guy had never been a sales rep. He was just a sales rep trainer. Now, in terms of what you asked about adapting to the corporate environment, I think it's a really good question. Yeah, our course is intense. You come in, and it's a minimum 5 to 7 hours a week. Some people spend 20 hours a week. You are really, really, really spending almost every day writing, meeting with others. That can't necessarily work in a corporate environment. So, Andrew, I think one thing we were chatting about was adapting that and saying, okay, instead of being this intense 5-week sprint, it's a slow burn over 3 or 6 months. I mean, imagine if you had a session, 1 session a week, or 2 sessions, then a week off, and 2 more sessions, and you sort of learn these principles in a more drawn-out way. So you still get the community element, you still get the feedback, you still benefit from all these things you can do when you're using software, you're using the internet, but you just stretch it out a bit. Yeah. You stretch it out a bit, and you fit, and it can be bespoke depending on the company. You have some goal you want to hit, you might do a sprint. It's just something in the background, but it's adaptable.
That's the thing. It's like an accordion. These things can change completely. Jenny, I want to come to you and talk a little bit about Meta Blueprint and the context for that conversation. Also, just want to throw out, we are going to open up to questions. So if you've got something percolating, start to formulate that. I'll open it up in a second. So Meta Blueprint is a lot of Meta's creators or experts bringing together a digital marketing program, right? Could you talk a little bit about sort of the goal and the ethos behind that, and where you think that can go? Because I think it's also quite at early stages for you guys.
You're right. It started, frankly, as a way to help ad agencies get smarter and use the platform because it is not easy. It really is not easy. So from that, we realized everyone is so much better off if they know what they're doing. And can we create training in an accessible manner using, we're very big on feedback. I mean, we will iterate, test, and test. So it is early days for us, but we're seeing success and it's building. And actually, we all had to get certified. So I've taken the classes myself, and I can tell you they're hard. I was very relieved to pass at 80%. Thank you very much. So it is early, and we have a lot to learn and a long way to go. And I will probably be calling each one of you for your expertise because, and actually, I'm sitting here thinking we're having a meeting in a couple of weeks, and I want you all to come speak. So we can give you real-time feedback. And one thing that Will just mentioned that I just want to jump in on is this notion of changing the mode of learning and the time. And you're going to learn so much in just seeing what works better and for whom, because we have so many different types of learners and so many different environments. And you all really are uniquely positioned to deliver that in a way that clunkier organizations aren't. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great point. I kind of want to throw this out to anybody here. The idea behind Blueprint kind of gave me this thought that there's a way for platforms to aggregate influences. Like in your context, there's a number of different experts within Meta that have sort of contributed to this overall program, and then a company could potentially buy this as a way to learn about digital marketing. And so what would an appetite be for creators, like kind of aggregating that to some kind of aggregating the supply side for a company to say, I get that whole package?
I mean, I think the biggest challenge for any creator is finding customers to take the thing, because you have, once you've validated it, right? Once you've run a few programs and you're getting the feedback and you're seeing people call it transformational, like, I mean, I've been in the rite of passage final call and people are breaking down in tears, like, of how powerful that program was. I've seen that in mine. I've seen that in Andrew's course. I haven't taken Teri's because I can't trade, so I'm going to let Teri continue to teach all of that.
To the wild side.
But all that being said, you see these deep transformations. So the thing that keeps a creator up at night is, how do I get this to more people? And creators, like I said, are experts in the thing they do. David is an expert in writing. Like, I'm an expert in storytelling communication. Teri's an expert in how do you trade and live the lifestyle you want with travel. But I'm not an expert in how do I get more eyeballs to my stuff? How do I get more people saying, like, I want to go take your course? Sure, I've learned a lot of that stuff because you have to as a creator. The creator has to learn every piece of their business. You really are a business entity. But it's hard. And so if there was platforms where the supply was brought to you and you could say, hey, this is a course you want to take. And I think LinkedIn Learning has done that a little bit, but it's obviously very different where it's just speaking at you. It's not the feedback. It's not collaborative. It's not leading to any real transformation. And every creator will tell you the key word at the heart of everything they do is transformation. How can I leave somebody at the end of that learning experience say, I'm a totally different person? I didn't expect this, but this is what happened. And we all know it will happen, so we want more people. And that's why I would think there is an appetite for those sort of initiatives like what Meta is doing.
I think there's a credibility question here. So we've thought about this. If we were to go to Deloitte and say, hey, we can teach everybody at Deloitte how to write, they'd be like, well, is there a certificate? Is there a degree? And we're like, no, you just go prove it in the marketplace of ideas. But that doesn't really work for Deloitte right now, probably. And so one thing I know in terms of supply of these courses, if you look at Maven.com, it's a company, their founders are running around here at the conference, and they have this vision ultimately of having the supply of all these different cohort-based courses where individually Deloitte's not going to partner with us, Rite of Passage, but we're not on Maven, but if Deloitte could go to Maven and be like, okay, there's some real credibility here, and then Maven can offer a suite of almost like electives for corporation that people could pick and choose, cater it to individuals at the company. So that's one model. I mean, there's a different model where, marketplace. A different model where a creator creates a bespoke course to a given company, but I think this could be one thing, Andrew, like this partnership, right? You have this aggregator institution. Maven could be one of many that could be out there. Yeah.
What that makes me think too is I think corporations are going to have to change the rubric of how to grade if an online course is good or not. So for example, the rubric for us might be what is their open rate? How big is their email list? What is their retention after a webinar? From the people who complete the course, how successful are they? Like there's a different set of success, like metrics for us.
Yeah.
And if you all know the metrics, I'm saying you all, but if a corporation has the reach and then you all are able to partner with us and we have the expertise, like it's a perfect match. We're both solving pain points, but you just have to look at a different metric.
Yeah, it's more about results than the certificates, right? That's so much more valuable, yeah. I want to open it up for, I think we've got five or so minutes. Does anybody have a question for the panel? Yes, gentleman at the back.
Thank you all for sharing. I've been on the creator cohort side of things, and now I'm moving into the formal education side. So I'd really love, especially with Mannon and creators out there, if you could give us any advice or insights on platforms and the trade-off when you look at working with other platforms, as well as kind of going from the B to C and then moving into the B to B and interoperability versus trade-offs of community, cohorts, some things you can get when you're in a bespoke platform versus trying to integrate with bigger educational forces or traditional corporations. So I would love to hear from all of you on how you use one, you use many, how did you make those choices?
You guys want to start first?
We use Zoom for live video. Basically, it's three things in my mind. It's live session, curriculum, community. So we use Zoom for live video. Right now, it's an obvious choice. We might move away from that eventually. We used to use Teachable as our LMS. We're moving to using Circle.so as our LMS. And then we also have Circle as the community. And we also use this platform, Geneva, for more of like a real-time, it's like a secondary social hub. So that's sort of our stack. Yeah.
So I've tested a bunch. I've done some of the platforms that take care of it. I've done it on my own. Ultimately, what I think you do is early on, you're going to find something that is as frictionless as possible from a creator, and then you're going to move if you realize this is a real business that you're going to build and start owning a lot of that process yourself. So currently, we're building out our own website that will host all of our content, all of that kind of platform through Webflow, but it will all be housed like internally, and then we'll use Notion as well to store some things that students may need. We'll use Zoom for live sessions. And then if we want a community aspect, oftentimes a lot of these companies are already using something. So if you're thinking about a company, it's easier. Instead of trying to force people into what I want, I go with the approach of, hey, what are you using? Are you using Slack? Are you using Discord? Are you using whatever that thing is? Are you using Facebook groups, like meta groups? I still sometimes get a little bit on that. But whatever it is, like you have different entities, right? Like different places that people are. And you're just, for me, I would use whatever they're at. Circle could be another one, right? Geneva could be another. Like, what are you using? We'll use that.
Right now we're using Teachable for our platform of where we're housing the classes, and then we're using Meta/Facebook for our community side of it so that they can talk to each other. And then we just recently built an app, and we're integrating it with both of those so that they can pull the app up on their cell phone and then get access to the courses those ways. But I'll tell you the truth, like, we love trying new things. Like, that's the part of being a creator or a creative. So, like, I was walking down the aisle earlier and I was excited about, like, Zoom's new rooms and class and just all the things. So I'm excited to do 2.0, and I might use a whole different suite of products, just whatever helps the student learn better.
Jenny, you even mentioned, I like this idea of meeting the students where they are. You mentioned people using WhatsApp as a way to deliver learning.
WhatsApp is surprisingly powerful. I mean, it's not surprising because probably everyone in this uses WhatsApp every day, and take that and just, it explodes globally. One thing that I was struck, and actually Adam shared this with me, is that half of the population of Brazil is actually illiterate. And so somebody came up with the great idea of teaching literacy through video on WhatsApp, because the population of Brazil largely does have access to a cell phone. So that, I think, is really the key. It's, in your case, when you're starting out, who are you trying to reach and where are they? And then which platforms get you there with the least amount of friction and are the most stable?
Yeah, that's a great response. We have time for one more question. Does anybody have? Yes, sir.
That seems really interesting, and I think the argument of the validity and the quality of the creator
Yeah, I mean, I'll give them time to think, but that is probably the biggest challenge, right? I think that is the thing that needs to be solved, and there's a massive, I think, market opportunity for that as well. But yeah, anybody got any thoughts on that?
I think it's really tough because it's also very personal in the match. And the truth is that you're not going to resonate with every student that's taking the curriculum. I've made the mistake of recommending a group that I have had terrific experiences with to a colleague in my chief women's group, actually. And she hired this group, they came in, and it was not successful. It triggered a lot of people in the room, and in a way it was successful because there was a lot of reaction, which is always a good thing. But you're right, Seth, it's a really, really tough thing, and that market opportunity of figuring out the match, and there will be a way to do it through AI, which is much better than one of us making a recommendation. We're not quite there yet, I think.
I think one thing that would help would be in the benefits package, add an open-ended education benefit so that it doesn't have to be a certified school. Let online courses count. And that would really help.
Let online courses count. I like that.
Should make T-shirts.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, I think one thing too, it also falls on the creator themselves to identify when it's not a good fit to work with somebody. And I think that there's a lot of bad courses out there right now, a lot of bad learning experiences. Like people saw it as a gold rush, so they just ran in and started creating courses. And honestly, a lot of them are not well thought out. They don't have the intentionality. They're not putting in that serious thought into them. So like, let's just first call out that like every course in the creator economy is not a good course. Like many of them are not. So what you want to find are the ones where you can go to people and you have real testimonials, and you should be able to go to a creator and they say you can talk to anybody who's taken my course. Not I'm going to give you the hand-selected few that are going to give me a good result. You can talk to literally anybody. That I will give you their email and you can talk to them about that experience. I think that's one piece. And on the creator part, they have to be willing to say it's not a good fit for this company. My program isn't for you. Like I will turn people away from working with me because I know it's not the right person. And by being more selective, that means when I work with somebody, I know that they're going to get that result. And that benefits me so that when I open up my client list and the people who have gone through my program, I can say, you can talk to anybody you want to, and they will tell you, like, I'm not going to coach them. I'm not going to tee them up. You have a real conversation. I think that's what you're looking for is creators with integrity who aren't just in it to make a big payday by working with corporations, but are still really thinking about that transformation of their student and of the people they're working with.
And just close on a story. It doesn't have to do with discoverability. I think you guys all give great answers on that point. There's a story I'm burning to tell, again, with Oracle. Oracle is very hard.
Poor Oracle.
I'm sorry. There's some great people there, but it's very hard to sell software there because they have thousands, literally thousands of varieties of products that you can sell. And they hire thousands of 22-year-olds to sell them who know nothing about software, right? It's a huge gap. And one example, they came out with the self-driving database, the autonomous data warehouse. And we were told to sell this thing, number one priority. Nobody knew the thing, knew what it did. Nobody knew anything about it. And each individual 8-person team came up with their own way to pitch it and sell it. Right. Think about how inefficient that is. There's a 35,000-person sales force, right? There could be some guy in the Netherlands who figured out just the messaging. And if you had an internal learning culture, you could distribute that so efficiently across the entire organization. I mean, I'm just realizing now on this stage how inefficient it was. It's almost unbelievable, Andrew. I'm so glad you're working on this. And
come to my next panel.
The final thing I'll just say is if you're designing corporate training, just ask yourself a simple question. Is your training built on paper or software? If it's built on paper, think about moving to software and watch that training come alive. So I'll leave it there.
That's well put. We are going to have a panel later today talking about systems for learning. That was a big thing that came out of this for me, was that the intentional approach to creating, you create environments for people to learn. You don't lecture people, right? And that's, I think, a key part of this. So I just want to thank all 4 of you for coming up, spending your time with us today. It's been a fantastic conversation. If anybody here wants to chat to anyone, we have another panel coming up here. So everyone will be available just outside for follow-up conversation.
And
Thank you.
I'm on the next panel, so stay in the room if you want to.
Cheer Teri on.
Thank you.
Thank you.